Welcome to the weekly Akasha podcast. This is Origins episode 2 with my dear friend and soul sister, Anneka Boone.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited.
You're welcome. I'm happy to have you here. This is going to be very exciting because, as opposed to the first episode where I was sitting around and talking about myself, I intend to do almost no talking about myself in this episode. And while we've known each other for, let's just say, 4.5 years or so, there's much about your story that I don't know. So I'm very excited to hear about that. The for since this is a new channel, new podcast, I'm just going to say that reiterate that the intentions with these episodes is to celebrate the lives of human beings during this pivotal time of transition on planet Earth. The lessons learned, the past, the journeys taken, the highs, the lows, everything in between. Because if you're alive right now on planet Earth and you're watching this, you've been through a lot already, both consciously and subconsciously. We're going to talk a lot about like spiritual awakenings or remembrances, as we like to call it, and just everything that's been happening and attributed and has been a part of the overall collective rise in consciousness that we're experiencing and the planet is experiencing right now. So if you're new here, if this is your first episode and you're here because of Anneka, welcome. Thrilled to have you here, and trust that if you found this video randomly on the internet somehow, that there is something in here for you. So sit back, relax, get ready to learn about Anneka and her journey alongside with me. See if we can challenge or stretch some of your and our beliefs along the way, and possibly even get triggered by something, which if that happens, you're welcome in advance. If you're not triggered, if you're not getting triggered by something, you're not trying these days. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So if you watched the first episode with me, I had my friend Victoria on, and I mentioned Anneka also in that, and here she is today. So our little three-person triangle goes back to a program we all joined in early 2020 called Magic and Miracles. As I said, for me, that was when I knew nothing about nothing. And the three of us, ended up together in a little group. So the first thing I want to ask Anneka before we go maybe way back in her journey is, that was a program that Nicola started. Did you know about her before that program, or how did you end up in there?
Yes. So I had done a few of her celestial journeys at that point. And the way that I came across that, Nicola is this magical woman. She's like a mystical, shamanic priestess from the ancient future. She's one of those people that I feel like you get in her orbit and just stuff starts happening, stuff starts moving. She's kind of like an igniter of magic and miracles and like serendipity and really a teacher of, I think, alchemy on the level of people, everybody being on their own journey of being the alchemist in their own life, which is, learning how to read the signs from life, learning how to interact with the elements and starting to open up kind of this mystical journey, like this hero's journey, and really start to interact with life in this more alive way. And I came across her because somebody that I listened to their podcast had mentioned her. It was a spiritual podcast that I used to listen to. Somebody mentioned her. I just followed her and nothing really came of it until I think like maybe a year later. I was just scrolling through Instagram, and this was back in the day when Instagram was like just photos. It was like so much more lo-fi. It was so different than it is now. And I just saw this picture because she was promoting this celestial journey that she does, which is all about connecting to the stars of the Pleiades, the constellation of the Pleiades. And essentially, each one of these stars holds a specific energy, has a very specific name. She learned about this from the Andean traditions in Peru that used to connect with each of these stars and essentially open up portals and receive celestial energy and work with it in these different ways. So she posted this constellation. It was literally just dots. If you know what the Pleiades constellation looks like, it's just like a little like a few stars, and then there's like it's almost like a little dipper, but sort of different. I highly recommend looking at it because then you can go find it in the sky and it's like so small and cute and you can receive the energies from it. Um, but essentially I
Well,
saw this photo on
only
Instagram.
you have to be the only person I know that would refer to a constellation as cute. But
Oh my
continue.
God, it's so cute. Well, if like the Big Dipper is like this, it's like the Pleiades is like
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
and you find it, you're like, oh my Sky Guide app, shout out. It's the best thing ever. So basically I saw this constellation and it was all she had was like the dots and then the lines connecting to it. And it was like almost like this energetic transmission that it just made me stop mid scroll. And I was like, whoa, what is that? Like I feel something from this image. And then I went and read her caption and I was like, oh, this Nicola woman who like I barely remembered following. And she was basically like, if you are receiving something from this post, she was like, if you're meant to go on this journey, like you'll feel it, you'll just know. And essentially, I was like, I don't even know what she's talking about, but like, why did I stop at this thing? And like, why do I feel something that's different than anything I've ever felt before? And so then I like looked on her page. I saw what it was. It was like a I think it's like a 40-day journey that you go on with her. And I'm very much like a claircognizance type of person. So if I am like supposed to do something on an intuitive level, I'll just be like, I know, and I'll just do it. So I signed up for that. I did it. It opened so much. She was definitely an amazing spiritual teacher of mine, and I really appreciate everything she's given me. I feel like I did multiple of those celestial journeys and then ended up in that magic and miracles program. And I feel like she really gave me, like, she helped me become almost my own, just like if you've ever read the book The Alchemist, this boy basically learns from all the omens of life and like just interacts with life in this very like magical serendipitous way in which like it's an ever unfolding journey step by step, and he only needs like what's right in front of him. I know you were talking about that in your first episode. And she really gave me that pattern so that like now it's like if I just have me and then this phenomenal reality, magic is always happening and I'm always picking up signs and like I just continue on step by step and feel like I always have what I need, and she really gave that to me. But magic and miracles came at a time, I think it was during the pandemic. Wasn't it like right before the pandemic that we started?
It was, yeah, like early March, mid-March of 2020. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
It was. And so I really did actually find Nikolai, I feel like, at a point when I was trying to figure out how I could live a spiritual life and like still, survive, support myself, and feel fulfilled like I was offering something that helped people. Because, I had several spiritual awakenings throughout my life, but like I had gone to school to study business. And then when I had this like mass spiritual awakening before the end of school, I kind of was sent on this journey of like, okay, that's not the life I want to live, going to work like in a corporate office, but like, how do I create a life I do want to live? And I very much found her like deep in the discovery of that when you're like, or when I was at a point where I felt, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know like what I'm supposed to offer. It was like so much unknown, which is so natural because like it's a journey of discovery, obviously, and like of learning and of mastery. So then you do have something to offer. But at that point, the magic and miracles point, I had just come back from India. I had come back from India and I was in India for like 6 months and I was studying yoga and Vedic astrology and just traveling and like really having in my own alchemist journey. It was like such a pivotal part of that. But then I kind of came back and was trying to figure out how to integrate it. Like I still wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, exactly how to share my voice, or like even if I was at a point where I felt like that was of value yet. And I was working at a ski resort up in the mountains in Washington. Genuinely because it was something like my human had wanted to do when I was a lot younger. And I almost feel like I had to go. I was still at the point of like checking off these things off the bucket list that like the old me like really always wanted to do. And when I got there, it was just like it was such a trip because I was kind of just like at a cabin alone in the mountains. and like, walking over the ice every day to like take a bus to go to the ski slopes. And then like honestly, it was towards the end of the season at this point. And so like I was the only one in this office. And like it was just like I would just be there was a point where I was just like, what am I even doing here? I don't like even know. It was such like a cosmic, hilarious joke, honestly. But I feel like I just like really needed to it was such a sign that I just am not who I used to be anymore because I was genuinely
Mhm.
like, wow, I really always wanted to do this. And like, I think I'm just like I'm really different now. The things I want and the things that are going to bring me fulfillment are very different. But I feel like this was a pivotal point in time because it was like a lot of quiet, a lot of being by myself. And when I found magic and miracles, and it was kind of like this container to transform your life within this certain amount of time. And I had had so many of those experiences with Nicola, but this was like a deeper dive. I was like, I have to, because like I have to get to that next level. And like I just had this knowing that it would take me there. Honestly, I trusted her because she'd moved a lot of energy for me in my life. So I was like, okay, like it wasn't at a point where I even like had a ton of resources, but I just knew I had to do it. So then, yeah, that was that. That's where I was at that point in time. I was literally like in the mountains in the snow, working some odd job, and I was like, magic and miracles, let's go.
Man, I knew you were in Washington because you didn't you grow up in Washington?
I grew up in Washington, yeah, and then I had gone to school in Los Angeles, and then after that, I like traveled all over, and then after I went to India, I kind of was like, okay, I need to like build back up, figure out what I want to do. And so I came back to Washington. And so from while we were in the Magic and Miracles container, I was like living at a cabin alone in the mountains. And then when the pandemic hit, I did come back down the mountain because everything closed down to
Right.
stay with my family for like, I don't remember. It was definitely less than a year, but it was like between like 6 to 8 months that like everything was full lockdown. And so that's where we like concluded our container.
Yep.
And by the end of the container, I mean, by the end of the container, my life was like already totally different. So like that, it really did shift a lot for me. Do you feel the same?
Oh, I mean, back then for me, every day was like a new experience. I mean, there
I
was
feel
so
like it was
much.
a lifetime within itself.
I mean, that whole thing with Nicola is still weird because um, just I had never done anything like that in this lifetime before. And I was so drawn to it. And throughout the entire thing, I was like, I've never done one of these shamanic journey things. I have no idea what's happening. Like every time we got together, like as a group, a lot, not only you and I and Victoria, but like everybody, I was just like sweating and it was just highly energetic. There was just so much stuff moving and I would literally like sleep for hours afterwards, like every single time. And just all this stuff that my logical brain, which is what I had relied my entire life on to do things and decide things and whatever, it was just so outside my realm of experience that it was like overloaded and was like, I have no explanation for this. And then in my heart, I just kept showing up. Like it felt
Mhm.
right for reasons that I still don't understand. I still feel like there was all kinds of things that happened during that I maybe am not even like really consciously aware of in terms of the way things shifted and moved and changed.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, just the fact that like you and Victoria are still in my life, like 4.5, 4 years later, when practically everybody has shifted or moved out or changed in many ways, the relationships, and we're still here. So that's pretty cool.
I love that so much.
Um, So I
Yeah, I feel
talked
like
about this with Victoria, and I'm curious if you remember the Facebook post that I posted and what your reaction to that was and why you were like, yeah, this is who I want to hang out with in this like small 13-person container or whatever, and he's the only dude in here.
well, first of all, I like guys. Like, I feel like there's a grounding energy about the masculine. It's like chill. You're like, you say what you mean what you say. Like, I have an older brother. I mean, not to say that that's why, but I've always enjoyed that. You know what I mean? So that I wouldn't say that that is like I was like, oh, the one guy I have to be with him, but I think on some level there is maybe like a subconscious level, there's like a level of comfortability. Like I'm like, this is going to be chill and dynamic and a vibe. And on top of that, it's the clear cognizance thing. Like I just like I see something and I know it and like I go for it. And I think I've learned to trust that more over time because when I was younger, maybe I would feel it. You know, you feel it, you know something. Everybody has a different way they intuit things. And for me, it's kind of just always been this knowing. And it's like not a physical sensation necessarily. And then sometimes the mind will come in and, you know, give all this reasoning, why not, etc. But yeah, I just feel like I knew. And yeah, I liked your vibe. I thought you were cool. And what I love
Do
so
you
much
still
about
think
you
I'm
too
cool?
is I totally do. And what I love so much about you, I feel like I tell people about you all the time, is that like in this journey of collective awakening, it's like it's all scopes of people that are going to be like waking up to the awareness that we go beyond this body, we go beyond this lifetime, you know, going from the earth into like the galaxy, into other universes, like all the way up to absolute source consciousness. And so, like, it's important that it's not just, you know, young woo woo girls like me who are in like the spiritual game. It's like you are a brilliant, intelligent, down to earth guy from Nebraska who, you know, worked. I mean, you work in like technical, I don't want to, I don't want to fudge your impressive occupation. But just were having, you were having probably the most intense spiritual, metaphysical, psychic experiences out of all of us. And you're like, I don't even know what's happening, but this is literally what's happening. And um, you just like have such epic power. And I think it's a really good example for people that there is not one flavor of a spiritual person or somebody who's tapping into these and into these things and evolving their consciousness. It's like I just like love that about you. So I think I picked up on that vibe too and was like, let's go. I
Very
think we all
cool.
knew each other in a past life. Like, let's be real.
Yeah.
It was written, it was a contract.
Um, so you've talked about clear cognizance a couple of times. So in case somebody isn't aware of what that is, like what is that? What is that? And as a follow-up, and I'm going to break the rules about asking questions by asking two questions. But after you explain what it is, I'd be curious to know like what that experience is like for you because you kind of said that like everybody experiences it differently. Well, do you like feel something in your body specifically? Like how does that work for you?
Okay, so, well, I said it's different for everybody because genuinely which is so important to remember too, I think, as we get into all of these things, is that when other people are, you know, sharing about their experiences, we all have a different design. So a lot of us will have similar things going on, but a lot of us are also very different. So like in human design, there are people who are like sacral authority. So like you get this intuitive feeling in your gut. There are people who have splenic authority, and the splenic intuition is very interesting. It just comes like a snap of knowing, and then it's like literally gone. So like
That's
you
me.
would just have to take, yeah, that's cool. Oh, you are that? Your splenic authority? That's so dope. That's so cool because it's literally apparently like you just know it, but then that's gone instantly. So like you can't tap into it later. You always have to go with that first hit. Um, but for me, I'm like technically sacral authority, which is like a gut feeling about something, like something just feels good or something and right, and something doesn't. And so I've had to practice that over time, but like generally I'll see something and I'll just be like, that feels good. That's it. And like another example is if I'm like picking a tarot card, it's just like, which one is this feeling? And then I also have noticed with myself, I have certain physical tells. Like sometimes my like lip will start to like quiver or like I'll yawn if something's correct. That doesn't always happen, but that's also a sign. So you just kind of have to tune into your own system over time and start to figure out what it is for you, which takes trial and error. So, you know, respect everybody on the journey.
And for you, what does claircognizant mean?
Oh, claircognizant. It's like you just know something and you don't have an explanation for why. And there's different clairs. So like clairaudience is you'll like hear something, some sort of psychic intuition. It'll literally be like feel like it's auditory. And then there's clairsentience, which is like almost I think you'll feel it. I don't know if it's like somatic or emotional. And then there's clairvoyance, which is sight. You can psychically see. And claircognizance is like you literally just know. You're like, I don't know why I know, but I know. So,
Yeah, and there's some other ones. There's also like smell and whatever, and probably important to say that we all have access to all of them.
yes.
It's just what there will typically be one, especially like early on in your journey, if that's where you are, that will manifest itself really strongly just to bring your attention to it. But these things all exist on some levels. I mean, an interesting one for me is like songs or like audio things that I haven't heard in like years. Will like I'll just hear them playing. And there's
Like in
usually
your
some
mind?
sort of like message in there. So, okay.
I love that.
So we've kind of
You
talked.
you'll hear it like you'll hear it like at a store or something, or you'll like hear it play in your mind. Or
No,
you'll
like
hear it through your ears
I'll
through
just like
sound.
hear it in my head,
Okay, cool.
like out of nowhere when like nothing else is happening, right? Like usually when I first wake up, like one morning I woke up and I heard the Lion King song playing in my head. I haven't watched Lion King in forever.
What
So
was the message in that for you?
well, it was the part about I just can't wait to be king.
Oh, King Jacob.
And yeah, stop. And it wasn't about like, oh, like being a king and like having a kingdom and like taking power or whatever. It was just more about like stepping into like my own authority.
I love that
And
so
that's
much.
not like that came through. I had to sit later on and just be like, because it like literally would not stop. Like
Mhm.
that's like one time, okay, whatever. But when it was just happening like over and over and over again over the course of like a couple of hours or whatever it is. So then I sat later and I was just like, okay, what is
Mhm.
the message here?
Right.
Okay, so we talked a little bit up to like the middle of 2020 and whatever, and you've touched on India and some other stuff. But I'm curious, what was your first inkling or experience with things are getting weird or things feel different or this doesn't make sense? Like how did like what was the true origin point for you?
Okay. Well, my true origin point of spiritual awakening was around it was like around like 2012, 2013, which is there have been these, specific years where I think there's a lot of awakening that happens all at once. I know that, 2020 was one of them, 2012 was one of them. And I think this was when I was in my senior year of high school. So I think my consciousness had already kind of started to expand. And then I had a hallucinogenic journey with one of my good friends. This was the first time I ever did any sort of hallucinogenics. And I had actually been like pretty adamant to not do it because I always just like really wanted to protect my brain. Like I was like, I always want my brain to function as well as it can. But no, my good friend Winnie, shout out Winnie, she basically I didn't like understand fully, what it did, what it was supposed to do. And she kind of, I don't know, like lifted the curtain and was like it's not in the same realm as all of this other stuff. So we had an experience together and it was like for me, I think we both it'd be cool to ask her, but we've definitely talked about it before. We had very similar experiences in the fact that we were like very synced up together, but mine was like boom. I think it was like honestly a Kundalini energy awakening because I didn't have like all these crazy physical symptoms from it, but it was like I literally feel like I shifted into a different dimension of reality. Like I almost feel like it was like going from the 3D to like the 5D. I could all of a sudden see that everything was alive and like pulsing with life. And I feel like I could see behind the curtain of like my sensory perception was turned up so I could see like all of the sacred geometry that was behind everything, like even in my hands and like every like blade of grass. It was like getting a peek behind the veil, but then at the same time, beyond just the visual experience with that, like I felt the love and like the life that was in everything. And it was like, it took me from a place of just thinking like reality was mundane. Like, why are we here? I feel like when I was growing up, I was always kind of like, I never even want to have kids because like life on earth, I mean, like, I was like, life is kind of whack. I mean, the world's kind of a scary, dark place. Like, why bring somebody in here? I was like, my parents were always so kind, amazing people, but they had no like spiritual perspective. It was kind of a like you live and then you die and then you're dead kind of vibe. So I was like, what is the point of all this? Like legit. And then yeah, it was all of a sudden like coming into this awareness of like the universe is alive, magic is afoot. There is like benevolence to all of this. And it was like my heart chakra just totally opened up. And what was interesting about this experience is that it like didn't go away. Like it was like, yeah, like the visuals and everything. And like I came back into like my normal, my body, like my senses felt back to normal, but like my expanded awareness remained. And like the magic of what I experienced for like the next, I would say even like 6 months was just like constant elation. Like I was heart chakra open. I felt compassion for everybody. This was like another big thing that I realized when I had this experience was that like everybody comes out and like everybody is born so naturally like pure and loving, and it's like all the things that get layered onto them throughout their human experience that makes them the way that they are. So like you can't take any, and now I realize at this point that it's like it's also like lifetimes beyond lifetimes. It's like not just like when you're a baby and like in this lifetime that things happen and whatever. But that essentially like not to take anything personally. And like all of a sudden I was just like so footloose, so fancy free, like so just in awe of life itself. And honestly, it lasted for like I was saying, like 6 months, still felt pretty good like a year after that. But like I knew nobody who was into spirituality. I didn't know spirituality outside of religion was a thing. I didn't know like any of the practices, any of the tools. So I kind of like eventually just like reverted back into a lack of sensitivity and like more numbness again until the end of my college experience, because then I went off to college, blah blah blah. And then the end of my college experience, I I feel
Before
like
we get
started.
there, let me ask a
Yeah,
question.
yeah, please.
So when you went in, so like before the hallucinogenic experience, did you set any kind of like specific intention
No,
for anything, or were you just
no.
like, ah, we're just gonna do this and whatever?
It was straight up for fun. Yeah. It was straight up for fun and curiosity. I, previous to that, like had no spiritual inclination, knowledge whatsoever, which is why what's interesting, because I think with these things, it's like they have a consciousness of their own. I think we also have agreements with these things before we come onto the planet of like, and like I feel like certain people are predispositioned to have certain kind of experiences, because there could be somebody who could do the same thing that I did like 100 days in a row. They're going to have an entirely different experience, just like my friend did, than I did. But like boom, it was like a light switch, like instantaneous, and changed me forever. So but that's just my personal experience, so I will like reiterate that it's like, and that's why I feel like life is this beautiful thing, because I think, we get guided to certain things that are good for us at certain times, and like we only know what's for us and why. I didn't really even know what I was doing, but I'm glad life did.
So
uh
when you say it lasted for like 6 months to a year and you were a senior in high school, like what was your day-to-day experience like
Well, I mean,
after
no,
that?
I was still totally in like my old routines. Like I was at this point, I had actually it was like the summer before college. So it was like the most footloose, fancy free time. Like my friends and I were adventuring around. I was still partying. Like I was totally like young college kid vibes at this point. Like there was no, it wasn't like I was doing a bunch of holy things, but my vibrational experience had just like raised tenfold. And I was like happy. I feel like I was like manifesting. I was manifesting things, like if I needed a parking spot, it was there. If I needed this, it showed up. Like I was connecting with everyone from like this heart space. Whereas before I felt like I kind of never even really knew what to say to people, like except for my close friends. I was just like, small talk, what? And then after this, I'd be like, my dentist, I love you. You know what I mean? It was like one of those things where like I get in an elevator and I'd be like, I literally love this person who's in the elevator with me. Whereas like previously I would have been like, don't talk to me. You know what I mean? So it was like that kind of vibe. But in terms of my lifestyle, nothing had changed. And I will add actually that I had also found during the summer, I think either a little bit, I think maybe it was after this, but I had found The Secret and I watched it. And I know The Secret, it's so funny. It gets a lot of flack, but I know it's like really actually it back in the day, it really did spark a lot of things for a lot of people. And that's all about manifestation, like how you visualize, how you attract, vision boards, visualizing before you go to sleep. And I manifested so many things using the techniques in that video. And even though they're not like, I feel like I've found better ways to do it as time has gone on. That was the other thing. Because it might have actually been slightly before this experience. I just randomly watched it on Netflix and I started to do it. And it was literally just such an empirical thing of like, I tried this and literally it worked. Like I have all these things on my vision board. Now I have all of these things now. And so that was another like, there's something more going on here kind of
Yeah.
vibe.
Quick
Yeah.
side note, if people, so it's also a book, it's a video, it's been out for a long time. Your mileage will vary depending on all kinds of stuff, but it is like I would phrase it as like it's a gateway drug to like
Yeah.
exploration of manifestation and how reality actually works and how powerful you are with
Yes.
just intention and the words that you use and the thoughts that you have. Like, so if you're interested, you can go down that rabbit hole if you haven't already and you feel called. All right.
Definitely. Okay. Should I go back to the end of college now?
Well, I think so because you didn't finish college, right?
Yeah, great. So, well, all the in between, all that sandwich stuff. Uh, we can ignore that. But the end of college, I get to wait, you mean now? I'm out of college.
No, no, I mean like you didn't go, yeah, like you didn't go from what you were just talking about having your summer before college through
Yeah.
4 years of college.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm curious between starting college and what, like I don't even know when you stopped going, but like
Yeah.
how did that go? Why did you decide to stop?
Oh, college?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. I graduated.
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't
Got
think
a
you did.
bachelor's degree from the
My
University
fault.
of Southern California. Um,
Okay,
but
so in that case, I will let you pick up the story wherever you want.
okay, cool. So yeah, college just like honestly kind of kept going with my life in the way that like I knew how to do it. Like I was getting a business degree at University of Southern California. I was kind of just as you do as a young kid, testing out things, seeing what you like. I think it was in my senior year that I finally realized it's like, no, I like am not really that into when I was younger, I really genuinely was into the partying. Like I thought it was fun. I thought it was an exploration. It like I think in the same I know I was listening in your episode you talking about when you first got into it. And I think especially for people who are really, I don't know, really like sensitive or maybe even old souls. I don't know if that's even fair to like categorize everyone in that way, but like I feel like it finally gave me a chance to like relax and like connect with other people and like not feel I think I almost felt like I remember when I was a really young kid, like being at the lake with friends and being like everybody else, like I was so young and I remember being like everybody else seems like they're having so much fun and like I just like could not there was just like always kind of a sense of like heaviness and density that I couldn't shake. And so now I wonder if that's like me being used to being in a higher vibrational space or like a place where I have like more sensitivity. And like now that I've developed more of that sensitivity, everyday life even like the most mundane things are like enjoyable and fulfilling for me. But like previously, before I had found that, I was kind of just like, I don't know, eternally bored, like always, I don't know, just wondering what the point of it all was. And so anyway, uh
I feel that. Feel that.
yeah, yeah, totally. So I feel like kind of like when, when I would do things like um party or drink or do something like that, I mean, it literally like I think takes you to a space where like you can enjoy like whatever is happening because it almost like dulls your need for sensitivity. I feel like you get what I'm saying, but on a technical level, I feel like it brings some sort of sense of relief in that area. But by the
Yeah,
end
I
of
mean, just quickly for me, it's clear in retrospect that I was using alcohol in many ways to just like I was way more sensitive and picking up on way more things than I was consciously aware of. And I think it was exhausting on some
Mhm,
level. And so I would use alcohol to be like, oh, like because it will absolutely kill your energy and cut you off
mhm.
from higher vibrational things, which probably tells you all you need to know about that particular substance.
Yep.
Not a judgment on anybody or anything.
Just cold hard fact.
Um, but yeah, I would use it because it would like dull that down, and then I could just really like enjoy what was going on and not think or pick up on like all the stuff that was going around me.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
till eventually I got to a point where I was like, I am just not enjoying any of this anymore. And really, since 2020, it's certainly every year that's gone by, I have been less and less interested, and
Yeah.
especially like over the last 6 months in doing any of that. So,
I
all right,
totally,
side
yeah,
tangent. Continue.
relate. No, no, no. That was is so relevant. And I related to so much in your story from the first episode about all of that because I think yeah, like that kind of worked for a while, but then it stopped working. And then you're just like trying to do the same thing, but it's not working. And you're like, okay, well, you have to come to terms with that. And then you come to terms with it. And I came to terms with it kind of by like slowly just kind of like retreat. I didn't have many friends who like to do things that were, more in that health, wellness, spiritual scene. Literally knew nobody kind of in like the spiritual scene. It was much less popular than it is now. And so I started going to a yoga studio and then I started to like feel better. I kind of just started spending more time with myself. I would go to yoga. I like volunteered at this yoga studio. I met people there who are like going to this meditation studio. And I started going to this place where I met another one of my first spiritual teachers. And so this was all unfolding like my senior year of college, and I was supposed to graduate and go move up to San Francisco and like work in tech, just in like tech sales and follow that model, which is so funny because that's
I
like
cannot,
my dad's
I
path. I was just
cannot, I cannot fathom you as like a technical sales engineer person. Like,
well, I wouldn't be an engineer, I'd just be like the sales girl. But
I know, but you still would need to talk. You still have to have some technical knowledge in whatever.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
I've never obviously knew you when you were even remotely close to that. And having worked in tech my entire life, that just
Yeah,
like blows my mind into like a million pieces. That's
no, totally.
amazing.
It's so funny. And so, yeah,
Was
I
there
was,
like a specific point?
yeah.
Like, I would love to hear about if there was like a specific point where like, 'cause it sounds like you had something lined up and you were like, yeah, I
Yeah, I
can't
can tell you
do
about it
this.
again. It involves some more psychedelic journeys. Which I didn't, it wasn't like a thing that I did that often. It was like these pivotal like moments. So one of the teachers that I started meditating with, and like just doing all this other kind of stuff, this other work with, I went to that meditation studio that was by the yoga studio because she literally walked into the yoga studio and like it was one of those claircognizant things that was like, who is that woman? I must know more. And she came in to talk about this course she was sharing down the street at the Den meditation. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to the intro night, like see what's up. And she just, for the first time I'd ever come across, like besides like, a yoga teacher giving a sermon in a yoga class, was spitting all of these spiritual laws of the universe, things about healing, ancestors, spirits, energy, polarities, alchemical symbols, like all this stuff. And it was instantly like the, oh my God, this is what I've been looking for. Like, this is exactly it. I feel like it was very much of a, on some level, I remembered it. Like, I was like, this is a language that like I speak, and I've been looking for other people who speak this language, but without even knowing I was for my whole life. So I started working for this woman, and she did like a lot of amazing spiritual work, and she also led plant medicine ceremonies. And so I hadn't decided to do one. I was honestly just working with her for a long time. And then right before I was about to graduate, because I was going to move up to San Francisco, I had gotten a job working for Adobe. And I had been like praying to God. I was like, I know I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I know I'm not happy doing this kind of thing anymore. It was like my more like human self had really enjoyed it. But like now that I like got into this, but I think just like on an ego level, honestly. Um, now I had expanded into this new space, and I was like, I feel so strongly, again, on a claircognizance level, that this is not the way. And I would just pray and like manifest and visualize, and honestly manifest with honestly like meditations that I had found on YouTube, techniques from The Secret, that I would be like working with this woman and then also her cousin, and that like we would just do things together, and that like I wouldn't have to go, and that I could stay here. And before I was in Los Angeles, before I had to go and graduate and go up there, I was like, okay, I'm going to do a ceremony with her because this is the last one I'm going to be able to do. So I decided to go. My best friend Anna, shout out Anna, came with me. She was like, oh, you're going, I'm going. And so we both went. And it was so powerful. I feel like the first experience I had was this opening to the universe as like the source of like the universe being alive, everything being alive, me being able to interact with everything and like experience magic and the benevolence of it all. And this experience was like me coming into the awareness of like God, like the divine. Like that is what it felt like. And it was so sacred and beautiful. And after that, I was like, I know I can't go here. Like, I have to just try to see how I can live a life that is like fully in alignment with my spiritual values, which I think that not any everybody who's on a spiritual path needs to do that. But like I was at the very like beginning of my career journey, and I also have, I think, Neptune, which is like the spiritual planet, in the sign of Capricorn, which is like the sign of like career, work, legacy. And then I also have Capricorn. I have like, and that's like on my heaven, which is like my path of career. So I think that like for me, spirituality and career and like what I do with my life on a more public scale, they were like overlapped, intertwined. They don't necessarily have to be at all. And so then I was like, she had called me, and I was like, I feel like I have to stay. She was like, I'm calling you because I feel like I need to start getting my team together, and like I want you to stay. So I ended up staying, and I was working for her and then also for this like really amazing herb juice shop that was in Venice. And all the girls who worked there were like so witchy, so mystical. I feel like my like world was just expanding in so many ways. I had been like in downtown LA working, I mean, going to school, and like just everybody I knew around me just basically like wanted to party or like go deep into like sort of, I don't know, realms of academic study that I wasn't as interested in. And then all of a sudden I was like out on the west side, like closer to the water, like meeting all these vibey, spiritual, creative people. Like my world was just like expanding by the day. And that was how I took that fork in the road.
And this
Yeah.
would have been like 2016, 2017,
2017. 2017.
2017.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you actually graduate college in 4 years? Because I didn't.
I did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So it would have been like, so that would have been like, you would have graduated the spring of 2017 then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah, and that was all the summer of 2017. all that stuff. And so yeah. I mean, there's more from here to there, which I could summarize quickly, but do you have any questions in the meantime or
Oh, I mean, I got questions, but yeah, give me the summary.
okay. I'll make it brief. So, well, basically, I just like, I feel like the overall message is that it's not just sunshine and rainbows when you find the thing, because oh my God, it was so much back and forth. Like, I had on a whim decided to move back to Seattle, even though I was having such a good time in LA, for unimportant reasons. And I moved back home, and all of a sudden I get there and I'm just like, oh my God, I feel like I'm instantly in this like lower vibrational reality again. And I was like, again, confused, lost, like don't know what to do with my life, etc. Um, my friend Anna, who had went to that ceremony with me, she was like, "Come work for this outdoor active travel company that I worked for. They, you can go like all over the United States, all over the world." So I ended up doing that for a summer, and then after that, I ended up going to India for I went to New Zealand and then I went to India. So that was like 2/3 of a year. And then I came back and then I moved up to the mountains. And that was when I did Magic and Miracles with you and Victoria. And then after Magic and Miracles was when I started working for the Kundalini Yoga and like Meditation Institute that I now work for. But, or actually, I don't work for them anymore, but there's a lot to the story that's actually like not super important. I am again in a time of transition, but it was towards the end of Magic and Miracles that like I found Kundalini Yoga, which is one of the main, I mean, it's like the lineage that I practice with now. And that finding that and then coming back to Los Angeles was like me finally finding what I had been seeking for so long. And I think that ultimately, we're always on a journey of like learning more and discovering more, but it was like me like finally sinking into that place of like, okay, now I can just like consistently grow and create and expand versus like going from here to here, like desperately searching for something that I'm looking for. And so I feel like it kind of gave me this like sanctity of like a path, and that just like feels so right. So I worked for them virtually for a long time, doing a lot of Kundalini yoga, traveling around to different places and working remote. And then I moved back to LA in 2022 and have been here ever since.
Okay, we got to back up
Okay.
because you can't just be like, oh, I went to India and then I came back.
Oh yeah, yeah. But I mean, it's just such a long story. It's like whatever you want to dive into, we'll dive into.
Yeah. So we'll just start with like what drew you to India? Why out of all the places on the globe you could have chose to go to, why India?
Okay, so I had always wanted to go to India. I didn't know why. I had always felt drawn to it. Another part, I do have to shout out my dad because uh even though he's not deep into like the spiritual mysticism and stuff, he did give me a meditation book when I was that like the chief happiness officer of Google wrote. He gave it to me before I graduated high school. And it was all about like it was called like the search for happiness or something like that. And that got me meditating, which was like major, I feel like. And so I meditated all through college and I've meditated ever since he gave me that book, to be honest, and tried many different forms, etc. But I mean,
Good
that
job,
is,
Dad.
yeah, good job. Honestly, like literally, shout out, Colin Boone. But the feeling with India, it was just like I had always wanted to go. I don't even know why. And so, of course, later I connected it to there's some spiritual connection here, but I don't know exactly what it is, because I was always into meditation. And then in college, I got into yoga. And like, I'm not that acrobatic or even flexible. It took so many years of yoga for me to even be able to like touch my toes. So there was something about it. And so I was just always knew I had to go. And then, when I had the outdoor active traveling job, I was supposed to work for them the next year. So I wouldn't have gone to India, but I ended up like denting one of the vans like a day before I was done with the season. And you basically can't go back the next year because if it's your first year and you dent a van just because of like just strict insurance things, you're basically like too expensive to insure. So I was like, oh my God, it was such divine redirection. And I was like, okay, I have a summer
Did
off.
you did you feel that way in the moment?
You know, I did. I did. I think I was at the point in my life where I knew, but it was still like, oh man, this like it was like this sucks and like I tried to like you try to like fight it or I tried to fight it, but then I was like, okay, I know on some larger scale that this is meant to be. Now I know it even more to the point where like the instant something happens, I'm like, I surrender to it, but like there was definitely some resistance. But there was nothing I could do. So I was like, I'm gonna make the most of this. I'll go to India because I saved up money and I have like a summer off now. And so I went to New Zealand with my grandma because she always likes to have a traveling partner. And then from there I went to India. And on my way to India, I decided to read the autobiography of a yogi. I had heard people mention it. It was one of those things where you just hear something enough times, you're gonna read it. And I'm pretty sure I read the whole book on the plane ride to India. And holy guacamole, this book is amazing. I mean, it's just the best book I've ever read. It's so crazy. It's about this guy named Paramahansa Yogananda who was a yogi, a student, and then, a master of yoga in India, and then came to the West and he came to California. He established several self-realization centers here in California that you can still go to, and then also established the I don't remember exactly what his school called. It might be like just self-realization or something, but basically he brought Kriya Yoga over here. And Kriya Yoga is a type of yoga. I mean, I hesitate to say a type of yoga because it's like yoga, there used to not be types. It was kind of a Western thing, I
Right.
think, to bring it into different things where it's like yoga was just the science of the evolution of consciousness. It was like, how do I merge the infinite with the finite? I know I'm infinite and I came here into this human body. How do I, like, what practices and techniques can I use to, again, merge my consciousness with that infinite God consciousness and then still be able to live in this human form, but with that level of enlightened awareness. And that's like what yoga is. It's literally like the science to get you there, the techniques to get you there. And kriyas are, if there's karmic action, it's like karma is actions that bind you, that are going to cause you to have to relive things, like relive the reverberation of the consequences of your actions in a way that's just kind of going to keep you stuck in this loop of pain, suffering, and endless reincarnation. And then Kriya are actions that liberate you, that bring you closer to divine consciousness, and that bring back like the consequences of those actions are positive and keep you going on this journey of evolution. And so kriyas are the specific yogic exercises that, use like mudra, mantra, eye gazes, specific ways to meditate that like systematically bring you to this state of heightened awareness and help you to evolve your consciousness. And that's what this book was all about. It was about like true yoga and this experience that this guy had, basically going on the yogic path in life and then also bringing it here. And there's so much magic. Like there, it would talk about Indian yogis who could do the craziest things. I mean, like levitate, like materialize things out of nowhere. I mean, there are a lot of cities that you can gain on the yogic path that um you can kind of do things with just for show. You're not supposed to, or else your powers like get taken away.
Hmm.
But it's just this peek into this whole new reality. And I just like it was such a deep remembrance or this feeling of this is exactly like the path my soul has been seeking. I mean, I do feel like it's highly likely that I have like lots of past lives of being a yogi because that was always the path. That was the path that so deeply resonated with me. It was like the first thing I did that I was like, I feel like I've done this for lifetimes.
Mm.
And just like on a cellular level, you're like, I remember like this is not the first time I'm doing this. And so anyway, reading this on the plane on the way there, I literally was like, because so much of this book is about him and his devotion to his teacher because the energy is just passed that way, like through the yogic lineages is basically like from teacher to student. And it's like really revered over there. It's like not as much a thing here in the West because like we're kind of, I think, so weird about that. Even the notion of like having a teacher and having someone like you trust outside of yourself in that way. And so when
I
I read
know.
it though, I
Heaven,
was,
heaven forbid you show any kind of weakness.
yeah, literally, yeah, it's
That's
such
the way
a
it's been for
Western
a
thing.
long time.
Yeah, exactly. And so I literally was on the plane and I was like, this is what I want. I want to learn Kriya Yoga and I want to find my, like, I want to find my teacher. And so that was like my prayer on the way there. And then I get there and it's so funny because I had signed up for a teacher training, a yoga teacher training, outside in the hills outside Rishikesh, which is one of the places they call like the birthplace of yoga. Who knows what actually is? I'm sure it's, an off-planetary technology, honestly. But I had signed up based on a recommendation from my friend who was a Vedic meditator. And I thought it was just going to be like an asana teacher training, which is like most of the yoga classes you go to in the West are asanas. You're doing different physical postures. And then also, you bring in the breath a fair amount. But like classic yoga, it's like you're doing a lot of interesting things, these kriyas with like mudras, movements, all this stuff. And unbeknownst to me, I get to this yoga training, and it's like this Indian yogic master who is teaching essentially Kriya Yoga. It's slightly different than the yoga that I do now because this was kind of came more from the east, the northeast part of India, but it was powerful and amazing. And I was like, oh my gosh, perfect. Like I ended up exactly where I was supposed to be. And so I ended up staying and studying a lot longer than I meant to. Like I was only going to stay there for a month. And then I ended up staying for another month to do their next training. And then I ended up staying for a third month because he was doing a Vedic astrology training, also known as Jyotish, which is so amazing. And I was just like soaking this info up from like what felt like the source. It was so incredible to like learn that for so long. I think on my journey there was so much information revealed about what we're actually doing here and how it's important to evolve spiritually and how to evolve your consciousness and how to heal and release energy and all these things. But like there wasn't a ton of practical how. I can't tell you how many things I listened to. There were like, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do whatever. But it was like never like, okay, but how do you do those things? How do you get to that place? And like I feel like I was receiving a lot of technical understanding of the how.
Mhm.
Yeah, which was very satisfying.
I'm just curious, what did they think about you staying? Did anybody ever say anything and be like, "Oh, this California chick staying again for another month"?
I think no, because I think it's like one of those places where like you it's the whole thing that's happening is like so dharmic and so magical that there are people who come and they end up staying forever. There were people that started at the same time as me who are literally still there and like
Oh,
work for them
okay.
now. And they were like it was big groups of people from all around the world. So that was an amazing time. But what was interesting about that though is that it was like still a bridge for like where I was going because I could tell there were a lot of people there, including like some best friends that I made, that this was their like one teacher. This was their like sangha, which is like spiritual family. And like it was so correct. And for me, I had heard about um my first teacher of Kundalini Yoga, Guru Jagat, and who was back in the US before I left. And like I had a ping about it. And like while I was there, it was like while I was in India, I was like, this is all like so incredible and so amazing. But like there was something that was like 1 degree off from like where I felt like I was necessarily
Mhm.
supposed to ultimately end up. And then when I came back to the US and I was doing Magic and Miracles with you guys, I started doing Kundalini Yoga with Guru Jagat and some other teachers online because they had an online platform. And like that practice was what clicked in for me as that was the first thing that I did that I was like, this thing I feel like I've done before. And like so many downloads about it too. Like I was like, I feel like I've done it before. I feel like specifically this is like Kundalini Yoga by Yogi Bhajan. And I felt like I could feel other beings who had done it before. And like I remember instantly being like, I've done this before. Jesus and Mary Magdalene did this, and it's literally like an off-planetary technology. And like
Mm.
they were aliens. Like I remember just like randomly having that exact flood of information like while doing that on my deck. And I couldn't get enough. I mean, I feel like that is sometimes how you know too. And then all the people in like that community too, I just feel like I've known forever in a way, kind of like you and Victoria. So I felt like I was like, okay, there we go. That was like the final click into place. And the one thing I would say with that also practicing Kundalini Yoga is that it by itself started to make my life so magical and like fascinating and like such a journey of serendipity and magic that it was like what I had been seeking to maybe have again in those few hallucinogenic experiences I had, like what I had tried to recreate. It gave me that just by doing that type of yoga, and that hasn't stopped since. So that was kind of the led me to where I am now. Yeah.
So when did you know it was time to leave India?
Um, well, I did those 3 trainings, I guess when I ran out of money, basically.
I mean, perfectly valid. Perfectly valid. You got to get home
Yeah.
somehow, right?
Yeah, I had to come home. And then that was like a shock too. Yeah, that was crazy. That was definitely the most because I was still just, and that was what was interesting is I come back like so changed, so expanded. And like I could have started teaching that kind of yoga, but it like, and I did to like my friends and stuff, and I practiced it myself, but something about it, like there was, I just had a feeling. I was like, I know for some reason that like I'm not supposed to teach this right now. And I've never been like the type of person who like will want to offer something unless it's from such an authentic place of wanting to share. Like it was never like, oh, I want to be a teacher, oh, I want to be a speaker. It was always like, no, if I feel like I'm at a point where like I have something to share that's of value, I'll do that. But like I wasn't at that point then. So I went to work in the mountains and hang out with you and Victoria on Zoom.
I have some questions I want to ask, but first I'm just curious. So, uh, I mean, a couple of times you've been like, oh, I kind of felt lost or not sure, but was there ever any point in that story that you've described for like the last 45 minutes where you were like, man, I don't know if this is for me. Something feels totally off. Like,
Do
or
you
was it mostly like, you were dialed in enough, I guess, to be like, even when you weren't sure, it felt like everything was okay.
do you mean about the spiritual path in general, or do you mean about specific places that I was? Like, do you mean when I was in India or
So like, let me just give you like a personal example.
Mhm.
So like, there has been times in the last couple of years where, and again, my experience has been pretty physically intense for portions of it. So that certainly contributes to but I mean, there's just been days where, after weeks of just not feeling good physically and like not sleeping, that I've just been like, why, like, is this really what I want to do? Because for me, it was always clear that like I had a choice to keep saying yes or not.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I kept saying yes, maybe because I'm just too stubborn not to. Um, and I was always like, nope, like I've already come this far. Like, what else? Like, what else? What's next? What's next? Like how far can I go? Surely it can't be any worse than like the last part, right?
100%.
But I've had those moments, and I mean, even earlier this year where I was talking with Victoria about something, and I just told her I was like, Victoria, I'm just tired. Like I'm just so tired. And it was over text message, and her immediate response was like, I felt that in my bones. And I
Mhm.
was like that's just how I feel. Um, so I was just curious if you ever just had any of those moments where you're like, man, I just don't know anymore if this is what I want to do or where I want to be, and I'm tired of like not knowing where I want to go, or just, or if your experience was something completely different.
No, I've had more moments like that than I can count. So many. And especially for, for years after I decided not to go work that tech job, there were a million moments where I was like, was that the hugest mistake? I could be making so much money. And there were just millions, not millions, so many times where I even would pick up my computer and, job search, see how I could, I don't know, go back to like living a more quote unquote normal um life so many times. And I would say that only even recently, I I mean the past few years, I almost think since I kind of came into that like more anchored space that I was just talking about, have I just been more and more sure. But there have even been moments then. Like I would say it's only kind of almost in the past year that like that has almost completely gone away, because it was almost a death of who I used to be. And then like a recreating of this new self and this new life. But it's like in that whole time where it's gestating, like all the old stuff is turning to mush, and then you're crystallizing into this new thing. You can't know for sure what it's going to look like, if you're going to be okay, if you're going to disappoint everybody who's ever known you, if you're going to disappoint yourself, if like really you had been crazy the whole time, or like, just like if you're really going to make it, to be honest, so many times. And I've had the same experience, the whole bone tired thing. Like I remember texting my good friend Aurora and just being like, oh my gosh, I just like after this lifetime, like I don't know like what more I have in me, you know what I mean? Like it really will take it out of you. And I, which I genuinely am so grateful to the Kundalini Yoga, because like I feel like it's an energy technology ultimately, and it has allowed me to like become a master of my own energy, to the point where like if I'm tired, I know exactly like what I need to do. Like this kind of breath, this kind of movement. It's like opened me up in such a new way that like I feel like I no longer feel like I'm like just like crawling forward, scraping against the concrete. And so I do feel like there is a time where it does get better. Things do go in cycles. And it's honestly like so written. If you look at like the astrology and the cosmology and the things in your chart, like not we all go through cycles. So you know, you can never like I feel like life will always humble you, to be honest.
Yes.
But I feel like I'm kind of out of now that like perpetual state of, questioning and doubt. And there are so many times along the path too that like I had been toying, with the idea of like taking a different direction. And I swear by like the grace of God, by the grace of the universe, I was like kept in to a point where like then something else would happen that would like expand and open it for me again. So like I can't take all the credit and be like every single time I was like strong in my conviction, but it'd be like, no, I'd be doubting. And then like, boom, that thing would happen that would take me to the next level, which I think is kind of common, because I think in the alchemical cycle, there often is like those deep, dark, murky periods before the next expansion. And so like it takes a while of going through them enough times to kind of be able to notice it in the moment, and then start to master it a little bit more. And that is the one thing I would say that like the spiritual journey, I mean, people say it's not for the faint of heart. I think a lot of people who are like not in it at all will sometimes look at it as being kind of like airy fairy, this and that. And then like when you're really deep in it, you actually know how much, which I don't think is like a forever thing, but I particularly think at this moment in time, we're like literally collectively ascending, and we're ascending out of like a darker period into this lighter period. And with that comes the clearing out of like lower vibrational frequencies and energies. And a lot of us, there are people who came before us, God bless them, who came here to do so much of that work even before us and like opened a space for us. But like we're also slightly ahead of the entire collective. And so therefore, like doing this clearing at an earlier time. And so like there will come a point where we feel much lighter and much more free and like able to be those lighthouses for the people who are, you know, just starting now or will just start in a few years. And it genuinely is like so natural and so normal to have there be chaos and murkiness and doubt and confusion before you like reach that lighter place. And it doesn't last forever. I think even if it comes in cycles, like the cycles, they become they become lighter every time. You're like going in a spiral in a way. But yeah, I mean, if anyone out there is feeling that, will feel that, has felt that, you know, you're not alone. I don't really know of anybody who's fully immune to that. So that's another reason why I think community and having connection, soul connections is so important because you can relate to each other on that level. Like I know you and Victoria have for each other so strongly throughout the years, and we'll all continue to do so as we move into this age of Aquarius.
Yeah, one thing, I mean, there's a couple of things that are been made very clear after the past couple of years. And uh, as I kind of alluded to, we always have the ability to say yes and to say no. Your mileage may vary depending on what your soul came to experience in this lifetime with those things. Because if you keep saying no to something and it's written very strongly into your contract that like no, that's what you're supposed to do, and you just can't keep saying no to it, we're truly never given more than we can handle. Even as much as it may physically hurt or emotionally. And the path will certainly bring up all the lessons that you need to learn to continue moving forward. Ignoring them does not do you any good. They will just keep coming up and they will become more and more painful as you go along. But it definitely does get easier also because you will find the people, you will find the tools, you will find the practices, you will find, as Anneka said, through the grace of God, all the things that you need to be supported and to keep you going. Um, and if you feel like you're alone, you most definitely are not.
100%. There's even there's this idea which I really resonate with is which is that like life is, you know, a fulfilling challenge either way. It's a challenge either way. It's a challenge to like not say yes and to like stay where you are because that is painful in a way. And then like it's a challenge and it can be painful to like grow and expand. But like, so it's just like you just got to choose your hard, people say. And I'd rather be like deeply fulfilled in challenge than like, I don't know, feeling like I'm not fulfilled and deeply challenged at the same time. So it looks different for everyone because we're all here to have a different human experience. And so only you know what that is for you. But yeah.
Yeah, and I'm being I'm being reminded of what I was talking about with like you'll call the things to you that you need. Um, and also to remember that like, and you will discover this if you haven't already, that you're the powerful one and the call compels the answer, which means whether you want to call it prayer or intention or affirmation, like all you have to do is ask
100%. I
with
mean, before
feeling and things will start happening. Like
100%.
that is just the way that it works. And it took me a very, 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 very long time in this lifetime to remember that.
Yeah.
And once you start seeing the proof of it, it will just be like a rocket ship because once that starts happening, you won't want to go back to things being difficult because they don't need to be difficult.
I could not agree more. And it's so true. It's also this constant reminder. It's like you have this direct line of communication with the universe, which ultimately on a bigger picture is you. But like we don't, in this human experience, to be practical about it, exactly. You can speak aloud what you need. You can humbly pray. You can powerfully affirm all of these things that like it starts to create this relationship. And like Jacob said, things start to move. And that's something that you can carry with you always. I still need to remember it time to time. You know, like I got to where I am from literally being like, please, like, show me what I need to do, where I need to go, how I can serve all these things, like so genuinely, so humbly for until things started to unfold. And, now even where I'm at, sometimes you need to remember to like ask for assistance, call in that etheric support, ask to be shown the next steps and the next steps. So it's definitely this continuous journey of remembering. Essentially, I love what you and Victoria said in episode 1 about you reminding her to remember who she is. And that's what I feel like, not only things like relationships, like these soul relationships that we have are so important, but also things like you sharing this podcast is like, may people listen to your podcast who need to remember, to be reminded to remember who they are, which is like, you have infinite power within you. And it genuinely is just about remembering it, continuing to activate it, and to utilize it. And there are so many different tools and ways to do that, energy work, learning to use your voice, learning to manifest, to heal, to create. I think creativity is a huge, huge one, because I think that ultimately, like, God is this creative force that created life itself. And we're ultimately a fractal of that energy. And so I think that we feel most ourselves when we are creating and moving the energy. And that can look different for everybody. Like for you, it's like this podcast, it's like your Akashic work that you do for people, the crypto work you've done for people. It could literally look like you're so skilled at accounting, so you're offering your accounting services to people, but it's like moving the energy of like your unique creative force. I think that is actually one of the huge, huge keys as well, because it almost doesn't matter what it is, but it will move the energy and flow the energy to move you to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, the way I described working in technology for a long time was like my favorite part about it was like I got to like build stuff.
I love that.
Like I didn't like working with people very much, but I like to build stuff.
I freaking love that. That's so awesome.
Um, okay, we're coming up on time, and I have a couple of last questions.
Shoot.
Um, is there any specific instance that comes to mind during this journey that you've described where you felt like something like took you off course
That's such a funny question.
and you
Yeah.
took like a hard left turn and you were like, oh no.
Yeah. No, there are two that I can think of specifically. The second one, I'm not so sure if it was like the wrong decision, but the first one, this is hilarious actually, because don't know why this came through as like a tip to tell people. But
It's
when I
somebody
was
out there is going to see it and be like, oh, that's exactly what I needed.
right. So, because it's kind of like a rare occurrence, but it's also major. So when I had just graduated school, I was working at that juice place in LA, and I was working for this woman, and I was like vibing, things were amazing. And all these people from the Pacific Northwest, one of my best friends, and then this other guy that I knew from Canada, they were going to the solar eclipse. It was the total solar eclipse that was happening in 2017 that like you were going to get full visibility of in Oregon. And they always do like a festival, like kind of a hippie music festival, right under totality, so you can watch the eclipse. And I had told them I would go, and I all of a sudden got this hit that I was like, I honestly like don't want to. Like, I honestly don't want to. Like, there was this cool spiritual course my friend had told me about that was happening in LA. And I was like, I kind of rather do that and spend my money on that than like going to a music festival. And like, uh, and so that was my hit, but I was not the most adept at being like, I need to listen to myself and my intuition. And rather than like try to satisfy some like social relationship, even though now I know that like what's best for you is actually best for everyone. But I was basically like, I can't tell my friends I'm not going to go. So I went, and they say in the yogic teachings and also in, I think, other ancient schools of thought and mystery schools, to not watch a solar eclipse. Like, you don't want to be outside during eclipses in general. So lunar eclipses, solar eclipses, if you can, you want to stay indoors and like meditate. And if and if anything, like you definitely don't want to watch it. And there were literally, of course, like thousands of us under this eclipse watching it full view, eclipse goggles on. I had never heard this teaching before. This was like far before I had found, any like strong lineage of teachings of any sort. And after that, that was literally right at that juncture of time that I decided to move back up to Seattle, to the Pacific Northwest, away from California, where everything was like going great. It was like such a restless, spontaneous, odd thing for me to do. And the second I got there, I was like, what am I doing here? Like, I just made the worst mistake of my life. Like, it was a major dark night of the soul for me for at least a year to like 3 after that, up until I went to India. And when I later learned about that teaching in terms of the eclipse, I like 100% feel like they were connected. Like that was like almost like some fork in the road for me. And I think ultimately I found my way back to exactly where I was supposed to be, but it literally is where I was the whole time. So I thought about that for a long time, like until things started to get better again. And so that's a teaching. Try not to go outside under eclipses just because the energy is like it's kind of whack. Even though it can be powerful, they're portals, and especially don't watch them
Man,
strategically.
you talking about that story, like I kind of feel like I want to throw up.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh God, it's so
like
cringe.
that
It's
that's
so
kind of
cringe.
that's
Yeah.
wild. Like whatever that was
Oh my God, it gives me
something.
chills. Yeah. No, like not the good kind.
Yeah,
100%. But yeah, so I mean, what can I do with that besides warn other people?
fair. Okay. So at this point in your, and you've kind of touched on this, but I would love to hear more direct examples or an example. But at this point where you are, because you're how old now?
I'm 29. I just turned 29
29. When's your 30th birthday?
next October.
Did you just have a birthday?
I did, yeah.
Oh, I did see that on Instagram.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
did see
yeah.
that. Yeah. Yeah, like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, like 2 weeks ago.
Yep. Okay. I'm pretty sure I told you happy birthday.
I think you did. On some
Um,
level of existence, probably
yeah.
the third dimensional plane. But
Um, okay, so if you're 29 and things kind of started in 2012, that would mean it's been 12 years or so. So at
mhm.
this point in your journey, what do you consider your superpowers?
Mm.
It
Oh,
doesn't
that's
have
a
to be plural if you just have one, but I suspect you have more than one.
oh my gosh, that's such a good question. I love it. Um, well, you know what's interesting? And I've heard this from a couple different readers, and it's interesting because I like literally like I got a palm reading one time, and this girl told me basically just like almost the same things that I've heard from like hardcore astrology readers. So it's like these languages, and this overlaps with human design too. It's like crazy the things that overlap between the systems, which it's not crazy once you realize that it's all written by the same hand. But when you're first starting to come across it, it's crazy. The way that she said it though, I really liked was that like I'm almost like a lighter, like a match flame, to the point that like I can other people who literally are so powerful, so incredibly amazing, but maybe they just don't have like their flame turned on yet. Somehow on an energetic level, like I can flick on their flame and then they can like go and do their thing and it's like amazing. And I have seen that happen a lot. And like, I know it's not me. It's literally like none of the things we do are literally us. So, but it's just that is like an interesting thing. It's like, I feel like I can, when I meet people, it's like I can almost like see the insane magic that's within them. And then on some level, they're able to like then own it fully and like go do what they need to do with it. And that's one of my favorites because I just like feel like there's so many special, incredible people I know who hopefully
Well,
on some level are able to
my
do
personal
what they
experience with you on that front has been, and I kind of touched on it in my episode, was you will just casually say things like, "Hey, you might be interested in this book. Hey, you should check out like this person, like they're kind of like your vibe." And then those things are like exactly the things that I need. I mean, just off the top of my head, like you turned me on to Paul Sillig and to Donovan Remington and to Gene Keys and to human design and a little bit of numerology and astrology that took me down those roads. Like when I got the repeating message from the universe about the crypto stuff, I was actually remembering this maybe this morning because you had brought up this crypto stuff a couple of times and I was just not interested. And then the universe made it very clear to me that this was something I needed to investigate back in like 2021. And I remember reaching out to you because you were in some like Telegram or WhatsApp chat or like group or something you had mentioned. TLDR, I joined that group. That led me to somebody else's work, which then has had a massive and profound impact on many areas of my life, not just crypto and investing and that kind of stuff. And like that's been my experience of you. That's why when you text me a little bit ago and you were like, "Oh, I was listening to the episode. It made me think we should do this book." I was like, "Oh no."
I know. So I'm so excited about that book. It's literally, my friend told me it's basically how you can start doing dream work, but like very like deep teaching of it. I feel like anyway, I need somebody to book club it with me because that'll make me read the book. I feel like I realize that gives me dopamine, like doing it with somebody, like having some sort of external accountability. But no, I instantly thought of you. I literally was like, Jacob needs to read this book and it will make me read this book. So anyway, yeah, that's one of my great pleasures in life because it's also just like it's also stuff that people are destined to do and that's like already within them. It's just like they just need like that like a little, I don't know, mirror flame situation. So that one's my favorite, I feel like, of them all. And then maybe another one I think is like not is genuinely like always seeing the like always knowing that like genuinely knowing that everything is always working out the way it should be because I feel like I don't know, I just feel like that's like the greatest gift. Like when I was this and I didn't have this when I was younger necessarily. So this might just be come from like living life, but I swear like everything could be going on around me and like I would see it as a good sign. Like I genuinely
Mhm.
trust in like the benevolent unfolding of my life and that doesn't mean in every single second that I have to totally enjoy or be comfortable with exactly what is happening, but like it's not a fake of trust that I have. Like it's so sincere and genuine and I guess the greatest benefit that has is to like me who can have peace in this existence where much of it is very, very mysterious. You don't get to know everything, or else that wouldn't like what would be the point of the human
Yeah.
incarnation? Like you come here, I feel like you come here to learn how to trust if you're going to be on this path because you're never going to know all of it. But like you have said many times, you'll get exactly what you need in exactly the right moment. And like if you're ever going to if you're ever going to have peace, you just have to learn to trust it. And that's the fun of it. It's like being in a video game, the divine simulation. So yeah.
Beautiful. I mean, I will say compared, like, I definitely agree with that because compared to when we first met, you are like your energy is just so much more grounded and stable
Thank you.
now. Like it is so clear that you're just so much more comfortable with who you are and where you are and what's going on, um, and everything else. Um, that I just feel that about you. Like I know I've always joked that you feel like the younger sister.
Mhm.
Part of that is I am the oldest of my siblings, and you are actually younger than me. Um, but like your vibe now is just like just so grounded, so calm, so just like I know who I am, I know what's up, I know what I'm doing. Even if sometimes I'm sure you don't feel that way because we're still going through lots of rapid change and will continue to do so.
Yeah. No, I definitely do feel that way. And it just, it's funny to think back to the past because like I think now like oh this is just who I am, but like no, legit like fought through the trenches to get here. Um, so many times of like Jacob said, like deep not knowing, like confusion, chaos, and it really is all worth it. It's kind of like when you when you set off, there's just so much to clear away and cleanse away. And then eventually, like you've polished the mirror and it's like pretty clear. And then, of course, you keep growing and learning and expanding, but it's like, okay, now it's not like your attic is full of all this trash. So, like, you can't even see 2 inches in front of you. Not saying that's how it is for everyone. I really don't want to say that, but I just mean that, like, if it, it is nice to sometimes reflect on that to be like, wow, it really like we have come so far. And it's a beautiful thing. I'm proud of us.
All right, final question.
Yeah.
What are you up to these days? What do you
What am
want
I?
to plug? Where can people find you?
Yeah.
Assuming that she actually gets around to updating the document with said links by the time this posts.
When does this post?
Um,
I was going to do it today. Jacob is um worried that I'm not going to adhere to his
no,
schedule.
I am not worried. I am just, I have no expectation. I have low expectation.
Knife to the heart. Just kidding. Um,
You know what I'm talking about. So
I know.
that's
I know.
that's why you're
I've
laughing.
been waiting for this. I knew it was coming.
No,
Um,
it's not happening for like a week and a half. So you
I'll
have
just
plenty of time. But I just wanted to get that I just wanted to get that little tease in there for you. So
no, I appreciate it. It wouldn't have been complete without it.
yeah, but
So
what are you up
yeah.
to? Where can people find you?
Okay, so you can find me on Instagram at Anneka Boone. We'll put it, I'll give Jacob the link because Anneka is not always the easiest for everybody to spell. And you can find I'll give you my link tree actually, which has everything that,
Okay.
and you can also find it in my Instagram bio. But I have a podcast all about the new earth and collective ascension with my dear friend Callista. It's called Divine Rising New Earth. It's kind of like a play on Good Morning America, but Divine Rising New Earth. And that is so much fun. I mean, we'll have Jacob on. So definitely check that out and connect with us there. And I also teach Kundalini Yoga and meditation. And it's honestly changed so much for me. I feel like so much of even the shift that Jacob speaks of has been the liberation I found through that practice. So I do one-on-ones with people. I have a friend and I have a really powerful women's group coming out soon as well. So in my link tree, you can find just a place to put your email if you want to be in the know for that, just a place for women to gather and practice and move with the cycles of the moon and everything good like that. I mean, I find we've done this kind of thing before, and it's just like the transformation that happens when we move together, practice together, and like move with the natural cycles of the feminine is really amazing. And those are the 3 ways. Yeah, my Instagram, my podcast, and then get in the know for this upcoming women's group. Also, if you want to work one-on-one and get a Kundalini yoga practice or go deeper into a practice you already have, that is all going to be there as well. But thank you so much for listening. If you made it this far, I mean, this was like a really personal deep dive. I have always thought about like sharing the nuances of the journey at some point because I think it is really interesting. It's one of the most interesting things, I think, the fractal experiences of the spiritual journeys, because they're all so different, but like they have really similar through lines. And I just think it's one of those like fascinating, magical things to like witness the ways it's unfolded differently for different people. So I'm so happy that you're doing this podcast and that the origins is going to be a big part of it. And I can't wait to hear who comes next and hear their story.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see where this goes because it's exactly what you said. It's like the perfect example of there's an infinite number of an infinite number of experiences to have that are all leading everybody to the same thing. Um, and even though we're still on the same planet at the same times, everybody's lives and the way that they're doing this and the way that they navigate it is both similar and not similar at all and uniquely personal. So it was really cool hearing much about your story, like graduating college, that I just decided you never graduated college apparently. So
Girls got a back.
um, hey, it took me 5.5 years to graduate college. I tried to drop out on a couple of occasions. My parents wouldn't let me. I took a red shirt, what I call a red shirt junior year, where I took like 6 credits, which was like the minimum possible you could take to still be like in college. But I've always said that the experience of going through college was way more beneficial to me than actually anything I ever got out of class.
100%.
Definitely
I
not
cannot
true for
agree more.
everybody, but it was true for me. So we'll stop it there. I'm going to read my little outro thing, and then we'll go on with our day.
Beautiful.
So if you're still watching, thanks for tuning in to the Origins episode 2 with Anneka Boone. Hope you've gained some valuable insights, inspiration, and perspective from her story. Above all else, maybe just remember you're not alone on your own journey, and I'm here and we're here to support you along the way. Don't forget that the call compels the answer. All you have to do is ask. If you like the podcast or the episode, if you like what I'm trying to do here, I would invite you to join the community by subscribing to the channel. You can follow me on social media. You can leave your thoughts or questions in the comments below. The links to everything will be in the description, including if you want to learn more about Akashic readings or consultations with me. My website link will be in the description as well. Just want to say thank you for being a part of this journey with me. Your energy, your engagement, your presence, they all matter and they make a difference, and I am grateful for you.